This is your home for St. Cloud State hockey, keeping you up to date on the NCHC.
One-timer, come in, they score! Ripped in! A bomb from Permix!
Women's WCHA.
So Dana Rasmussen fires and she scores! Dana Rasmussen for the Huskies alongside
The National Hockey League.
Dwayne Kaprizov in for a chance to win it! He scores! Kirill, the thrill is for real! Welcome to the NHL, a game winner!
And everything from the state of hockey.
St. Cloud Cathedral is now 42.6 seconds away from wrapping up the school's first ever title.
Welcome to the Huskies Warming House Podcast Den. Welcome into episode number 88, the Huskies Warming House Podcast. I'm Noah Grant, joined by a pair of co-hosts who are here on this bright and early Sunday morning, Pat Micheletti and Alex Micheletti. It's a pleasure to have you both on the show. We'll get a little bit of an update as to what you two are up to here as we move along into the regular portion of the show. We've got a great Huskies Illustrated Weekly Roundup for the two of you, as well as we're going to talk a little bit of women's hockey, a lot of men's hockey, and their weekend series against Western Michigan and the tough weekend that the Huskies had. A little bit of Minnesota Wild talk, and we'll finish off the show with some talk in the NHL, the rumblings about the Quebec Nordiques, and seeing if they have a home in hockey. So without further ado, we're going to start with Center Ice View news and notes and the Huskies Illustrated Weekly Roundup. Center Ice View news and notes. Center Ice View provides you with the best coverage of St. Cloud State Huskies hockey, from game notes, recaps, photos, and more. Go to centericeview.com. And this week's Weekly Roundup, Noah Grant here, bringing you a very quick one, hopefully. Just a couple topics to get to around the college hockey and NHL landscape, a little bit of news about St. Cloud State hockey, some Quebec City news, and a couple of injury roundups as well. Starting off, St. Cloud State men's hockey, a tough weekend for them, swept by Western Michigan by a scoring margin of 10-2 on the weekend. A Friday night loss of 6-2 after a 4-goal third period and 4-goal performance by Ethan Frank for Western Michigan capped off the win for the Broncos, while a slow and methodical 4-0 finish on Saturday completed a great weekend for Western in that sweep. They were actually swept by Denver last weekend, so a good rebound for Western Michigan in the NCHC. Zach Okabe, Micah Miller, the only two goal scorers of the weekend. I thought Micah Miller had a fantastic weekend. I thought he was one of the few bright spots throughout the entire weekend. His defensive presence, especially in the penalty kill, I thought was very nice. Three defensemen, Spencer Meyer, Seamus Donahue, and Jack Peart tallying assists on the weekend. Netminder David Rennick on Friday, stopping 19 shots. Jackson Castor, a single save Friday, and 20 saves in his start on Saturday. Huskies outshooting Western Michigan 66-50 on the weekend. Team moved to 9-5 on the season, 3-3 in conference play. They're going to have a bye before welcoming North Dakota the following weekend. Over to women's hockey, it was a home-and-home weekend series that did not end well for the team, unfortunately. A 6-2 loss on Friday at home and a 5-1 finish on the road Saturday against the Minnesota Golden Gophers pushed the women's hockey team and the Huskies 4-7-1 on the season and 2-7-1 in conference play. Mackenzie Bourgeois, Emma Gentry, and Addie Scribner each continued their weekend goal streaks, scoring last weekend. Mackenzie Bourgeois and Emma Gentry, especially two players that have really come into their own offensively this season. Taylor Lind had 2 assists on the weekend, and Dale Ross, Yanina Newland, McKenna Wessel, Olivia Savar each had a helper on the weekend. Sophomore Sonia Hola had 34 saves Friday and 32 saves on Saturday, and the Huskies 46 shots on the weekend. Starting off with a quick hit of other NHL news, former St. Cloud State Husky and guest of our show, Nick Dowd, signed a 3-year extension with the Washington Capitals. $1.3 million per season. He has a goal in 9 games this year. I believe they just played last night against San Jose. I don't know if he was in the lineup, but he did finally make the trip. He's been hurt a little bit. 79 points in 316 NHL games for him thus far. The team has not beaten, as we had kind of mentioned, too. Speaking of women's hockey, I forgot to mention this, the team has not beaten the Gophers since February of 2010. 10. They're going to travel to RPI for a 2-game set over Thanksgiving. But as we mentioned, Nick Dowd, his extension, congratulations to him. He was an absolute blast to have on the show a couple episodes ago. So if you get a chance to go back and check out our interview with Nick Dowd, he was a lot of fun. In executive news, in our third to last topic, if you will, NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman, he's set to travel to Quebec to discuss the possibility of bringing the defunct Quebec Nordiques back to Quebec City. Quebec City's Videotron Center is an 18,259-seat arena that opened back in 2015, the 7th largest indoor arena in Canada and the largest that doesn't house an NHL team. They just have their, of course, I believe it's QMJHL team that is there right now. The NHL has expanded, of course, to 32 teams over the last couple of years with the addition of Vegas and Seattle, but no further expansion plans are publicly known. It's been rumored that the Arizona Coyotes are, kind of in the mix when they're moved to Tempe as of late, but we'll have to see. Also of note, former Pittsburgh Penguins minor league coach and brief NHLer Clark Donatelli was indicted on 4 counts of sexual assault in Rhode Island this past week. Donatelli, he's a Rhode Island native who played collegiately at Boston University and played 2 years in the NHL for the North Stars and Boston Bruins from 1989 to 1992. So again, more of this stuff coming out, just difficult things to hear, but glad they got done with that legal process. In our final little roundup here and quick hits with injuries and other NHL news. Former NHLer Dion Phaneuf officially retiring this week after over 1,000 games over 14 NHL seasons. That ended back in 2019. He hasn't played since when he was with the LA Kings. Toronto acquired NHL journeyman Kyle Clifford from St. Louis, and despite the ongoing feud between Carolina and Montreal, the Hurricanes announced last Saturday they made a donation to the Montreal Children's Fund in honor of World Kindness Day. So good to see those two teams doing the great things off the ice in terms of the little, besides the terms of the Twitter fun that they like to have with each other. In injury news, Edmonton defenseman Darnell Nurse, he's going to miss 2 to 3 weeks with a broken finger. Colorado's JT Compher is out 1 month with an upper body ailment. And New York Rangers forward Sammy Blais, he's going to miss the rest of the season after a torn ACL in his right knee that's going to have him out for at least 8 weeks. And then finally, of course, as we mentioned, or as we're going to mention in the show, the Minnesota Wild, they're going to await injury answer news. He's going to miss today's contest on Sunday. Captain and defenseman Jared Spurgeon, he exited Saturday's contest against Florida just 3 minutes into that game with a lower body injury. Like I mentioned, the Wild will face Tampa Bay today on Sunday. And once again, welcome in episode number 88. Noah Grant joined alongside a pair of Micheletti's, Pat and Alex. Alex, we're going to start with you. You were with me last week on the show. It's a pleasure to have you here bright and early again. Alex, how are you doing this morning? You hanging in there? And what are you up to for the day?
Yeah, hanging in there. Interesting weekend in college hockey and NHL. So, lots of fun watching all the games, and then gonna have football Sunday with my dad. So it'll be fun watching Vikings, Packers, and the full slate of NFL football. So looking forward to it. And then we also can mix in some Wild Lightning. So both teams coming off tough losses. So should be a surly game for sure today.
Yeah, it was a game that I think that Tampa maybe should have handled their opponent a little more readily than the Wild did. But the Wild, it's kind of been their theme of late. Little late and $1 short, but making it exciting nonetheless. Before I kick it over to Pat, Alex, what's the word on if you actually get fed today? And can you tell the listeners why you may or not get fed today?
Yeah, I overslept a little bit on the 8 o'clock start, only by 5 minutes. But actually, I was up. I was just on my phone, But I think I will eventually.
I think you are now officially enshrined as a co-host of the show because Nick Maxon has done the same thing. Although in his case, twice he missed the show by an hour and a half. So you know what? It's okay.
Hey, anytime I can beat Nick at something, I'll take it. What Mavericks. That's what Mavericks do, So
that's just a +1 and a good hard shift, if you ask me. Speaking of a couple of good hard shifts, although it's been a while, Pat Micheletti, 2-time guest in the show, and now a pleasure to have you co-hosting the show today, Pat. How has the week been, and did you enjoy the week off in the broadcasting world per se, if you will?
First, I'm going to throw up after what Alex just said, and the jury is still out whether he's getting fed today. In fact, I may take back the invite that was offered So, all right, we'll leave it at there, and I'll have to think about it. I actually didn't have the weekend off from broadcasting because I went to Iowa on Friday and worked the Iowa Wild Tucson Roadrunners game, which was really good. Good for me to get down there and see their prospects, how they're developing. And I can tell you one thing, Tim Army and his team with Iowa are awfully good. Got to see Matt Boldy in his first game. I wanted to see Marco Rossi because I hadn't really seen him in person. And so that was good. He played on a line with Kyle Rao and Boldy, and they had 4 of the 5 goals for the Wild. And
Average.
yeah, I mean, you could really tell the difference between guys that are close or can play in the NHL and then, the other guys. But yeah, so it was a busy weekend. Friday and Saturday, I went to I saw part of the St. Cloud, Minnesota game on the women's side, excuse me, in the Hall of Fame game. So I was there for a little bit. And so, yeah, all ready for a relaxing Sunday.
Yeah, we're certainly going to touch a little bit on some women's hockey. I wanted to ask you quickly, Pat, of course, you got the Heartlanders that are now in the mix and the Iowa Wild. And I don't know if I would call them a non-traditional hockey market, but, they're not the prime bread and butter, if you will, neighboring Minnesota. I've been to a couple AHL games myself. Are they worth the ticket price? In my opinion, I think it's really good hockey. People should definitely check it out.
Oh, 100%. A lot of people think the AHL is the second best league in the world. People in Sweden and Finland and Russia may debate that a little bit, but it's your top prospects. You're one step away from getting to that next level, the best level, the NHL. And so, listen, there's if Minnesota had 5 guys out today, they could bring up 5 guys and you wouldn't miss a beat. That's how tight it is. And so a lot of guys are waiting in the wings to get up here. And, it was a really, really, really good game on Friday.
Yeah, I got a chance during our national championship run. I was actually in Binghamton, New York, back when the Sens were back there, and they were playing the Marlies for a 2-game set. And it was some good hockey. I definitely well worth the ticket price, and I think ticket price a little more affordable too in that regard, which you're going to get some good hockey, like Pat had said. I kind of want to go over to, we have our trivia question for this week, but I think it's better served with the men's hockey stuff. So let's start very briefly. Women's hockey, like we had mentioned in the Huskies Illustrated Weekly Roundup, home and home series for them, 6-2 loss on Friday, 5-1 finish on the road Saturday against the Golden Gophers. Just not the weekend. It's been, as we also had kind of mentioned, it's been since I believe 2010 since the women's program has gotten a chance to get over the Golden Gophers. I think it's 37 or close to 40 matchups between the two teams. Sonia Hola in her sophomore season continuing to rack up the save total and play pretty well in net, though, I think. And but nonetheless, this women's hockey team, just not the result they're looking for. They're off. They are actually in RPI this weekend. They're out in New York. They're going to travel. So they're the only Huskies team playing this upcoming weekend. Pat, you said you mentioned a little bit about, you got a chance to check out the game a little bit. So I want to throw it back over to you. This women's program, they've started to be on the rise. They're starting to generate offensively. There's a lot of good pieces that they're starting to build on. Do you think it was a case of, a little bit of tentativeness from St. Cloud, or that in combination with the Golden Gophers team that perennially is just very good?
Well, like it or not, right now, Minnesota is still getting the cream of the crop, pick and choose, if you like to use that term, for recruits. And, but I'll take you back to when St. Cloud on the men's side, first entered, no different. And it takes time to build that reputation, that we have the ability to win here. We have a good school. Every facet of putting yourself at a higher level, and it takes time. It takes stability. I know that Eric Rude was the coach a couple of years ago, moved on. You need someone in place for a while, and to build it up, and then word of mouth with other recruits, and it just they'll get there. They'll be on the same level. They're getting better. So you just have to look to the positives and try to win some of those recruiting battles.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And they've held par with the teams that were hoping, 2 years ago, it was even your Bemidji's, your Mankato's, they weren't getting over the hump. Now they're starting to push for that 4th spot in the WCHA, which is, I think, no secret, probably the best league in women's hockey by a mile, if you ask me. But, those pieces still slowly coming together. And like you had mentioned, Bob Motzko was kind of the guy that made his mark for St. Cloud hockey. Yeah. And it's interesting to think about, Brett Larson first comes in, and as always, everybody has question marks and thinks, is this the guy? And I think we have the answer to that question in terms of carrying this program forward. So Steve McDonald, Janelle Sergey, Molly Engstrom, they'll go back to the drawing board. I think that, the shot volume is starting to come down in terms of suppressing shots for the St. Cloud group, but it's not quite where they want to be yet. And I think if they can obviously box out, keep that shot total down a little bit, it just means they're on the offensive side, and they have the pieces, I think, to, push through. Pat, you had something to add?
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting on recruiting, right? And how you go about recruiting, and what is the best fit for your team at your school. Yes. And I'll give you a perfect example of how some people recruit. Had a long talk with the Denver coaches about this subject, and they know there's just certain places they're not going to win. They're not going to win the guy. But what they do when they recruit, okay, let's say for example they're losing a left winger who is big and strong and is a great forechecker, or fills the role for that. If they know they're going to lose a guy like that, they go looking for a guy like that to replace him. So they plug in to what they lost. It's a very interesting way of going about things. But if you watch Denver every year, they're consistently pretty much the same team every year, and may have a new name and a new number, but they play the same. They attack the same. Everything involved. So that's one interesting fact. Mankato, Minnesota State, Alex's school. They know that they're not going to go after the number 1 pick in the draft, okay, and of the NHL draft, or the 2nd round, or the 3rd round, or maybe not even the 4th round. But they have a niche, and they have an area where they go to, and they have a philosophy of what they want to do with their recruits. They keep them in junior for a couple of years. The guys come in a little bit older, more mature, stronger, and they fit a system that Mike Hastings does. Minnesota, Wisconsin, on the other hand, right? They can go after those, in Michigan, they can go after those first and 2nd and 3rd rounders, because those kids have a tendency to go to bigger schools, right, wrong, and different. That's just the way it is. So I think St. Cloud on the women's side have to find their niche. What works for them? What type of player do we want? How are we going, how is it going to fit with where we want to get to? And, I think they'll figure it out, but it needs consistency and over time.
Yeah, it definitely takes time, like you had mentioned. And, you talk about, a flip-flop of the programs. I'm glad you mentioned Mankato. The Huskies getting the better of them on the women's side a couple of weeks ago. I think it's been, if I'm not mistaken, it's 8 straight losses for the women's program on the Mankato side, and their journey. Alex, before we get to some men's hockey, a very quick question, since Pat had kind of brought it up. Did you get a chance to go to any of the women's hockey games? I feel like Mankato, not only this season, I should say, but moreover, back when you were there, getting a chance to watch their program and kind of a similar thing in terms of what they've been up to?
Yeah, I mean, I actually worked women's hockey games when I was down there too. I helped out do stats, and it's amazing to see before. A couple of years ago, they were playing at the high school rink still at All Seasons Arena, and now they've moved down to the Mayo Clinic Event Center with the men's team. So it's done, tremendous for them in terms of recruiting and getting to play in the bigger rink, and getting a coach like John Harrington. And so, yeah, it's fun to see that program grow. And shout out to the team this weekend, though. They had no goalies. They had no goalies versus Ohio State, and they had to. They found a girl who was on the Mankato tennis team to play goalie this weekend against Ohio State, one of the best teams in the country. So it's amazing. Amazing story. And you don't. What are you supposed to do when you have no goalies? So to find somebody that had played goalie in high school is incredible.
Yeah, I think they lost one of the games 2-0. Am I correct there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is to hang with a team like Ohio State. Yeah, that's really impressive for sure.
Yeah, and sometimes the piece too, when you don't have a goaltender, especially that first night that you said the score was a little bit tighter. I mean, I've been in one game where a goaltender has been a late subtraction, if you will, and you have that adrenaline flow, and I think where you understand that the moment is now heightened, so to speak. And like I mentioned, Mankato has kind of been a foe that the Huskies on the women's side have gone toe to toe with. On the men's side too, just a little bit. Speaking of some men's hockey, why don't we flip on over to that in our trivia question? From yesterday afternoon did read: sadly, St. Cloud State men's hockey allowed 6 goals on Friday night, the 7th loss in the last 9 games against Western Michigan, now losing 8 of their last 10. The Huskies provided some records. We'll get into that in just a second. Western Michigan, powered by Ethan Frank, he had 4 goals that night. Who is the last player before that game to score 3 goals against St. Cloud State, and what team does he play for? Do you guys have any idea, first of all, who the player or the team is? It came last year, I'll give you that much.
I do. I do.
Who do you got, Pat?
I have a defenseman from Western Michigan.
Yeah, he's in there.
Is there another one?
There is another one. I'll run you through it here. Our winner was CHSTRCPPRPRT 33. It's Chester. It's Eric Chester, everybody. That's who it is. St. Cloud State has allowed just 3 hat tricks since August 2019, taking you back to the 2019 season. November 2nd, Corey Andofsky in that Princeton 5-5 tie at home. Following, I believe the next one you're going with, Michael Joyu, Western Michigan, that 5-4 overtime loss at home, February 6, 2021. And then following that, unless I missed one, Pat, which is very possible, I've got Nick Swaney of Duluth on February 27th of last season, that 5-1 loss at the University of Minnesota Duluth. Actually completed his hat trick before the second period was actually done for him. But nonetheless, who are you thinking here? There are a couple of 2-goal games.
Adard.
What a player.
Yeah, great player. Smart human being too. I mean, what he brings to the table on the academic side too.
He's really, really, really good. I thought he had 3 last year. Maybe I'm wrong.
He had a 2 game. I know he had at least 2. I went back through the game logs, and he popped up in that game where he had 2 goals. But nonetheless, Pat, you're highlighting it very well. And I think the better thing, let's talk men's hockey, Western Michigan. It's been painful in Kalamazoo as of late for the Huskies. Let's set the stage a little bit and try to talk the Twitter faithful off a cliff, shall we? St. Cloud versus Western Michigan. Before January 2020, the Huskies had not lost a game in Kalamazoo since the 2 teams started playing each other in December of 2011. St. Cloud State, 18-12-4 all time after this weekend, but they're 2-8 in their last 10 against Western Michigan. So you can see how that series has really swung with Western Michigan's style of play. Last time the Huskies have lost 3 straight February 29th, March 6th and 7th of 2020, the tail end of that season 2 years ago, Denver,
Right.
Duluth. St. Cloud went 20-11 last season en route to a national championship game. Everyone's freaking out about the power play, Pat. I don't know why. Huskies' last power play goal was on Friday, Zach Okabe, and the Huskies have had at least one power play goal in every weekend this season thus far. To wrap it up quickly here in terms of stats, St. Cloud is 9-5 overall, a 6.43 winning percentage, and 3-3, exactly 500 in conference play. They're 4-2 at home, 5-3 on the road. Last year, 20-11 for a 6.45 winning percentage, 15-9 in the conference for a 6.25 winning percentage, 6-2 at home, 4-5 on the road, 2-2 at home in the pod, 4-1 on the road for the pod, and 5-2 at neutral sites. Pat, I think the thing that, we need to start with here, they mentioned the power play.
Oh.
They mentioned, the Huskies, not having the better of the play. They outshot, the Huskies did. They outshot Western Michigan throughout the weekend. We mentioned that a little bit in the weekly roundup. Let me just pull it up. 66-50 on the weekend. I think the thing that I'd like people to get a start and an understanding, because it seems like, people are watching the game live. They're tweeting about the game live. They tweet about when a power play doesn't work. You have power plays in the game that sometimes are non-productive, non-momentum generating, either way, if you will. But I think that extends beyond that into a game. It was a weekend where, as you know, Pat, as a hockey player, hockey games are not games that you dominate for 60 minutes. That doesn't exist. What you do is you dominate stretches of the game, and you work with the ebb and flow to survive the stretches you're not dominating, and then you try to get back on your high horse. And I think that's what happened to the Huskies. It was just a little few and far between their stretches when they were, the controlling team. But Pat, as a former player, you have a clunker of a weekend. Is it time to hit the panic button for this team? I don't think it is.
Well, I'm not chuckling. I'm going to use the word for all of us, not the fans that are commenting. For all of us, we get spoiled. Going into last weekend's series against Omaha, their power play was at 44%.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. That's not a.
Yeah.
It was 44%. Never in the history of my lifetime have I seen a power play that has been at 44%.
Or that has potted 20 goals over the course of, what has it been now? 12 games, something like that.
When you look at a power play, kind of the benchmark, if you have a good power play, is 20%. 20%. If you're hitting at 20%, your power play is awfully, awfully good. St. Cloud's is 44%. I'm not going to sit here and make excuses why it wasn't good or not good this weekend. But that being said, sometimes, Western going into the series is probably thinking, you know what? We got to stop that power play. Mm-hmm. They probably put a heck of a lot of time into scouting how to break that power play down. And, St. Cloud plays on their big rink at home. They go into a place Kalamazoo is one of the toughest places in college hockey to play. They have great student section, great fans. It's darker in there. It's, it can be intimidating. So, you have to tip your hat to the other team. Western Michigan, which blows me away for where they were picked in the conference. Okay.
Yeah.
They are good. They are a legitimate team to win the national title this year. There's no doubt about it. They had everybody coming back, but the one key for their team was their goaltender.
Yeah.
Their goaltender got hurt in the first 5 minutes of his first game a year ago in the bubble and was out the whole year. Kid by the name of Bassi.
Yeah.
And he's back. And now they've got a goaltender. So losing in November to Western Michigan is not the worst thing in the world. And guess what? St. Cloud might get swept again. It's college hockey.
Mm-hmm.
Every team on any night can beat anybody. We've already seen it this year. So I wouldn't really panic. I think you will learn from it. That's how you get better. And now it's a distant memory in terms of what happened. You'll talk about it. And you'll work at the things that you weren't good at this weekend and strap them up again.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd agree 100%, Pat. And you do have the bye week too this weekend for the men's team. Get a little bit of rest, get home, get to some family. And I thought it was funny. There was an interesting comment too about, talking to someone, I'd mentioned, the boys might be a little bit beat up, tail between their legs as they come back home a little bit. And, the comment was, these guys are 18 to 25. They don't have excuse to be beat up or tired. Man, it's a hockey game. Play a weekend of hockey against Western Michigan in Kalamazoo. And tell me how you feel on Sunday morning. I'm guessing they're getting a lot better rest than we are, Pat and Alex. Let's just put it that way. Alex, kind of a similar notion. We talk about power play percentages. I was just looking over Minnesota State at 27.3% on the season this year. A good power play for them as well, too. They're a program that's on the rise, starting to feel the pressure of a team that has expectations, if you will. They took care of St. Thomas this weekend, but nonetheless, Alex, when you've watched Mankato teams in years past, and of course the Huskies as well, too, and you have the Twitter faithful that kind of go this way and that way, what is your evaluation of what makes a championship caliber team a championship team? And how do you kind of ride that wave and that ebb and flow over the course of a game, over the course of a season, to pay attention to a team and keep them, grounded, if you will, in the center?
Yeah, I mean, I talk about this with my dad all the time too. Sometimes, facing a little adversity helps.
Mm-hmm.
For example, this Maverick team 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago now, they lost on Friday night to Ferris State, and so that was a really, really devastating loss. And now the past 2 weekends, I just took a look. They've scored 26 goals in their past 2 series against Bowling Green and St. Thomas. So I think, message answered on that. And, as you go along in the season, you're going to have those ups and downs. And sometimes it's really good to get, take a really hard loss early because you know how it feels, and you don't want to have that loss come playoff time and come NCAA tournament time. So you just got to ride the wave. And like you said, it's, and my dad tells me this all the time too. These are 18 to 25-year-olds. Yeah, sometimes you're not going to have it on a night, and or an entire weekend. Practice is so key. A lot of people think practice is a joke, but if you have bad habits during the week, that can spill into the weekend, and so. It's always, always have to be sharp, no matter who you're playing. Every given Friday or Saturday or sometimes Thursdays, like the Mavs had this past week. So, you just never know, and you have to ride the wave. And it's nice to have a good goaltender like Dryden McKay, though. So you're always in it when you have a good goaltender. Same thing with David Rennick. It starts from the back end, and you go from there.
He had to throw your Dryden McKay thing in there, Alex.
Every podcast.
You're biding your time, and I think Jackson Castor was great in relief for the Huskies too. You talked about practice and how you play. I love that mentality. It's definitely true in terms of hockey. The other piece that I want to go on here before I kick it back to you, Pat, is we look at the Huskies team of last year, the team that after 92 years of St. Cloud State hockey was finally the team to do it and get them to a national title game. Wasn't the result we wanted in the end, but we made that stepping stone. That was a team that on paper, in your eyes, in some senses, they were not the team, the golden child in terms of St. Cloud hockey. And I go back to a game The second to last game of the regular season, the Huskies get their doors blown off up at Amsoil Arena. They come back, they respond. Then they play Colorado College. They play well in the NCHC tournament. They're down 1-0 off of a dump in from the red line. And we talked so much about that could have been a team that really folded like the teams of years past, and that could have been it for them. But it wasn't. It's a process. Everybody's sitting here trying to evaluate this team is or isn't championship caliber or this and that. We're not there yet. We're playing to develop ourselves for February, March, April hockey. So when it comes tournament time, you're ready to handle that adversity. This is a stepping stone where if you're going to have a clunker, man, have it on November 19th and 20th of the season. Don't have it in February. Don't have it in March. And that's what we're building towards here. But I think the expectation from last year, along with the fact that the Huskies started the season off pretty good. They started the season 6-2 on the season, had a good weekend against CC, really should have taken all 6 points from Omaha, but ran into a stingy defensive effort on Saturday for Omaha, and then hit a Western Michigan team where, Pat, as you had alluded to, we did a pre-ranking on this show. We had them finishing in the top 3 in the conference. They are that good. Their gritty style of play,
you guys were smart on that, but the league-wide, they were picked like, I think 5th.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Andy Murray not being there. I don't know.
No.
Yeah. But you talk about, everyone says, we had the argument too about how I really like Michigan, even though they're young. The Michigan Wolverines, a deadly hockey team, a lot of pieces.
Amazing.
And the argument was, well, the Huskies, I'd rather take them because they're more experienced. The average age between the St. Cloud State Huskies and the Western Michigan Broncos, and Pat, as you alluded, probably one of the best core retaining teams along with the Huskies, it's Western Michigan and the style and brand that they play. Forget the coaching change. The style of play hasn't changed for this group. And don't forget Western Michigan, they got swept by Denver last weekend. You want to talk about what a grind the NCHC is going to be this year? We have a very exciting schedule coming up in the college hockey world. It's been fun so far. But Pat, my question for you is this. You're the Huskies, you're Kevin Fitzgerald, you're Brett Larson, you're riding back on the bus from Kalamazoo. You got a week off, a little bit of holiday time, and then you regroup, you prepare, you welcome North Dakota the first week of December. What's the message in the locker room, and what do you work on going forward?
Not a lot to be said. Let's talk about St. Cloud a little bit. They've got 23 of 27 guys returning. And is it good? Will this weekend affect them? No. I can tell you, and I'll preface this by saying we're really blessed with 6 really good coaches in the state of Minnesota. Mm-hmm. 6 really good coaches. But the staff at St. Cloud is one of the top in the country. Brett Larson, Dave Shayak, Nick Oliver. They are dialed in. Okay. And about the team, this is a very, very mature team, and they learned a lot from last year in getting to that game. My biggest question coming in was how are they going to handle it? The target is on their back. They made it to the final game, and everyone wants to beat them, right? Everybody wants to beat St. Cloud this year. And so that being said, I watched that early, and let me tell you, I'm down in that room, and before games and whatever and talking to the guys, and verbatim out of their mouth, it's all about the team. It's not about the individuals. You look at their team. You just look at their team, and I potentially see 1, maybe 2 guys moving up. Having the chance to make it to the NHL. It's not about that. They're there to play college hockey. I hope they all get a chance, and you never know. I hope every kid does on any team. But that being said, they're just built around, togetherness and experience, and they nothing seems to affect them. And so that's why I think they have a really, really good chance, after you get through the season, get through your ups and downs, when it comes playoff time, I don't think they're going to worry about what happened in November, December, and January, they're going to be a team that's going to be ready to play.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And Brett Larson has prepared this group, and it's all about the process. We've seen this before. Like we mentioned, it's been a while since the Huskies lost 3 games in a row, but it doesn't almost feel like that with the performance that they had against Omaha. You have tough weekends. If you're going to have one, better to have it in November, better to have it on the road instead of in front of your home fans too. I think that's important. But the discrepancy, I think the Huskies, the discussion about how big the Herbrooks National Hockey Center ice is versus, NHL ice, that's a non-factor to me. It just was a weekend that the Huskies didn't control the pace of play enough for long enough stretches. And when they did, Brandon Busey, like you mentioned, he stood on his head and made key saves at key times to keep the Huskies off the board. You get some puck luck, you get 1 or 2 of those that bounce at the key time. Suddenly the complexion of that game has changed, and you start to have a tie game and you start to go back and forth. That's the ebb and flow of hockey. I want to talk a little bit about some Minnesota Wild stuff. We might push that to the extra ice session, but Alex, I wanted to ask you this. We kind of alluded to Kalamazoo being a tough place to play. Their fan base was rocking. You love to see they're a little bit crass at times, but they have the passion, they have the energy, they have the heart, if you will, on some pretty funny signs throughout the crowd this weekend when you watch the game too. That's some old school hockey. How good is it for the game too to have a team like Western Michigan that not only has the put up or shut up, at the tail end of last season moving into this season, but also has a fan base that when the Huskies go there, if Mankato goes there, whoever goes there, they know it's going to be a war, not only on the ice, but also on the mental side of things.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a huge difference getting your crowd into the game. If you get an early lead and have the crowd into it and the band, I mean, that really puts pressure on the opposing team. It puts all the pressure on the opposing team to try to get back into the game. And if it's loud, it can be distracting. And so, yeah, it's huge. It's so much fun for both teams to have a lively atmosphere too. And so, yeah, like you mentioned, Western, but the Crazies, they have one of the best fan bases for sure in college hockey. And so, it's so much fun having all the fan bases back in, for college hockey this season, after having, nothing last year. And so, yeah, they just, they bring the juice, as a lot of, coaches say, and players. So, yeah, it's so much fun, and fun when you're watching it on TV too, if you're not there. And, any sport is better with.
He said,
yes, exactly.
Especially when you're watching,
right?
Yes, of course. Yes. Kind of to close it off for the main portion of the show before, like you said, we're going to kick over. We're going to talk a little bit of Minnesota Wild, and then very quickly, brief thought. I'd like to get Pat's thoughts too on the Quebec Nordiques too. That might also be a discussion. We're going to have Caleb Peabody that's going to join Alex and I for the Thanksgiving special. That might be a good discussion for an off week in terms of men's hockey, if you will, next week. But, Minnesota Duluth splitting at North Dakota. A good win for them on Friday night. North Dakota 2-1 gutsy win last night. And then Denver was able to sweep Miami pretty handily this weekend. And it was Omaha and CC that had the bye heading into last weekend. Pat, kind of final thoughts on the weekend and what to expect from North Dakota.
Well, I think it's really good that they have the week off. Mm-hmm. They can, just kind of decompress a little bit, get away from it. Sometimes you're at the rink too much, in my opinion. And it'll be nice just to get away, because then when you come back, you're refreshed, you're anxious to get back on the ice. You have that drive again, because think about how long this season is, right? Yeah. When do they start? In September, whatever. But in reality, no, they've been skating all summer long, and it gets to be long and it gets to be arduous, and sometimes just getting away, from the rink for a couple of days is the best remedy to get that fire going again, or as Alex likes to say, that juice going again. And so, listen, you want to take care of business at home, right? And you've got North Dakota at home. And they're good again. I mean, they're always going to be good. And so it'll be a big series. I think the place will be packed, and it's going to be fun and exciting. And you just got to take care of business at home.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I don't know if this is this might be a bit of an overreach at this point, but it's kind of become where the NCHC for the past couple of years has been a 6-horse race, if you will. I don't know that Colorado College, is the team to beat this year, but it really feels and sorry, Miami fans, it feels like Miami is the only team that's kind of on the outside looking in with the progression of CC. And even Miami has given teams fits. What? This conference has gotten tighter and tighter as we've gone along. It's going to be a battle, and it is a process. Like Pat said, take it day by day, get your rest, get your recovery, back to work next week, or the week after, I should say, where you really hit it heavy, welcoming North Dakota in. It should be a good one. Next week, a lot of college hockey going on around the holiday break still. Some exciting things. Minnesota State, they're going to travel to Lake Superior State, but Alex, I got to say, who cares, right? Who cares, man? It's all about the Huskies and their matchup, of course, in December. Mankato, that'll be a good one to watch too. I would think that they should handle Lake Superior State, but hey, college hockey world, it's a funny world. What isn't so funny is the way the Minnesota Wild have been trending in the right direction over the course of this season. A tough loss last night against Florida. They've got Tampa Bay. But we're going to touch on them heading on over to our extra ice session and talking a little bit about some Minnesota Wild hockey. And once again, welcome in episode number 88, the extra ice segment. Pat Micheletti, Alex Micheletti, the dynamic duo joining us here. Alex, I want to start with you. Last night's loss, the Florida Panthers, who are a very good hockey team, 10-0 at home, one of the best teams in the National Hockey League. The Minnesota Wild, it was a day late and $1 short for them in terms of the comeback. They lost Jared Spurgeon to injury, but it was a good effort to close out that game, just looking for a full 60 minutes. What'd you see from the team last night, and how have you liked the week so far? You have a loss to the San Jose Sharks, a blowout win to the Dallas Stars, a loss to the Florida Panthers, and then Tampa Bay tonight looking to close out that Florida swing. Yeah,
really tough weekend. Probably like I told my dad, these are the weekend games, probably the toughest 2 games that they've had this season so far, or will once the Tampa game's over. But yeah, exciting week. It's nice to see Krill really get going. And like my dad called it, putting him with Victor Rask has given him a little bit of a spark. So yeah, it's really fun to see the plays he's making out there. Last night was tough. The D-Corps had a really, really tough game. But I mean, like Nico Sturm said post game, he thought Florida was one of the fastest teams that they've played all season. So, and they did that without Alexander Barkov, one of the best players in the NHL. But this team is different. They never seem to be out of any game, no matter what. I mean, they, especially last night, they could have just said, "Hey, we're moving on to Tampa," but they pushed for a tying goal right at the end there, and they almost got it late with Fiala. Yeah, I mean, this team has so much depth too, and just wait until they get guys like Marco Rossi and Matt Boldy on that team too. Yeah, I like how this team is playing. And hopefully Jared Spurgeon isn't out long term, because some of their depth defensemen had a tough night. Kulikov was involved in a couple of Florida goals, and same thing with John Merrill, and Matt Dumba had a tough game. So but like the college hockey season, it's a long season in the NHL too. We're gonna have an Olympic break here too. Looks like fingers crossed, but it's I like the way that the team is trending, and it was always going to be tougher too from last year to this year in the Central Division. You have a team like Chicago on a good run now too, and St. Louis is playing really well, and Dallas had a big win last night, and so I mean, it's going to be a tough battle right down to the end. Nashville, Matt Duchene had a hat trick last night. So yeah, there's so many teams in this division playing well, and when you go outside the division too and have a tough weekend like this Florida swing, good to get some adversity too in the NHL for sure too.
Yeah,
absolutely. and I will say this, and just for the record, fellas, just for the record, so you know, I had picked the Florida Panthers and the St. Louis Blues to meet in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Florida's such a good team.
Yeah, so you can write this, you can write that down. Okay, write it down. But no, I'm gonna use the word again, spoiled. We got spoiled by Kaprizov, and everyone was freaking out last week. And oh my gosh, anybody other not named McDavid, we can talk about, right? Because McDavid can do it every night. If I don't know, there's a league that doesn't exist where he should play in, and he should be the only player in the league, because he's just heads and tails above everybody else. That being said, let Kaprizov, what he did, goal and assist last night, something like that, whatever. But the expectation is he's got to do that every night. It's the NHL. It's the best league in the world with the best players in the world. There's not a bad team in the league, in my opinion. Okay, even looking at Arizona, yeah, we know Arizona's a mess because they're going through a lot of different things, and they're in a complete rebuild mode. And so, but they can beat anybody on any given night. They beat the St. Louis Blues last week. Okay, so
they won last night too.
Yeah, they beat Detroit last night. So I guess my point is, you just gotta just take a deep breath and understand it's an 82 game season. And as Alex alluded to, you're not going to be good every night. And for whatever reason, and, whether you're banged up, whether you're just not feeling it mentally, just think about it. Think about this, guys. You're a right winger. That just, your job is to go in and hammer guys and forecheck, and, or a defenseman. I got to go back and retrieve the puck, and I know I'm going to get hit hard into the boards. Mentally, that wears on you a little bit. And there are those nights where you say, I'm not going to go 100% in, maybe I'll go 80 or 90. And that, what happens? A turnover. And then what happens? That turnover leads into a goal for the other team. That stuff happens. And it's having that extra burst of energy. It's all of those factors involved. What you hope for, and why this Wild team has a chance every night, is because they have guys like game breakers like a Fiala and a Kaprizov. And Alex, you made a good point where, they never seem like they're out of it. And that's very true because of guys like, 97 and Fiala. So, you just want to maintain and be over 500 for the week, every week. And if you are, you're going to be in good shape.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about, I think it's 7 or 8 come from behind wins for this group, the most in the NHL. And as we alluded to a couple weeks ago, as a broadcast partner of mine says, some teams sometimes are too dumb to realize they should be out of hockey games sometimes, and they find a way late, and you mentioned not only, the big guns scoring. Kevin Fiala is due for a breakout at some point this season, the way that he shoots the puck and the way that he threatens the crease, but also you're complemented this group with depth scoring, your Marcus Foligno's, your Ryan Hartman, leading the team in goals, the way that he's progressed and looking like that first round draft pick as well too. You have to get complementary scoring up and down the lineup. That bodes well, not only in the regular season, but in the playoff time. It's not the big guns that necessarily are carrying the team. It's your unsung heroes. Kirill Kaprizov, 5 goals, 6 assists in his last 10 games. And it's kind of funny.
And people aren't happy about it.
And that's where I'm going. And that's where I'm going. And I'm glad I already know you're on my page, Pat. So I'm excited. So I'll ask Alex first. Kirill Kaprizov, 5 goals, 12 assists, 17 points in 17 games. In case anyone was checking, that's a point per game player. But beyond that, I had somebody not only on Twitter a couple weeks ago, but also in the locker room at hockey last night, tell me, well, he's not scoring at the rate that everyone looked for. First of all, Kaprizov is a playmaker, I think, in my opinion, that just happens to have a really great deceptive release. He draws guys to him and is able to create with his foot speed and his edge work and his hands. Here's the thing. You get 50 points in a season. Let's say 2 guys get 50 points in a year. One of them has 49 goals and 1 assist. The other one is 30 assists, 20 goals. Last time I checked, that's 50 bingos on the board for the team you play for. It doesn't matter how you cut it. 50 points means 50 goals went in the back of the net for your team. Alex, simple question. Does Kirill Kaprizov suck, or is he playing well here? Is he doing okay? It feels like he's doing okay.
He's doing just fine. I mean, you made a good point about drawing attention. It's guys like that and like a McDavid, Draisaitl. When they're on the ice, they're the number one guy that every team is paying attention to. And, especially on the power play too, the movement is so much better with this team when he's out there. The scoring chances that he brings to his line, it's incredible. And the edge work, it's so fun to watch him skate. It's the same thing with McDavid on his edges. Like the play he made the other night when they were playing Vegas on that goal, where he made the setup, and then the pass he made in the Dallas game when he was behind the net and a blind pass right in front and they score. He's just an amazing playmaker too. It's not only his scoring ability, but the way he sets up guys and the chemistry he has with Zuccarello. It's so much fun to watch. They're both 2 smaller guys, but they see the ice so well and the vision. It's so fun to watch a player that has the vision like Kirill, and he just does everything. He does the little things as well, and so when he's on his game, it's so much fun. And you don't have to score every night to impact a game too. And so
very good
point.
Here's the deal. Here's the deal too, which literally I chuckle at. I chuckle at, right? Kaprizov didn't play well against San Jose. Okay, he did not. He didn't play well. And they expect him to play well every night. We all want him to play well every night. Well, I do read Twitter once in a while, and and what happened after that San Jose game? They switched lines, right? We got to try something new tonight. But people thought, message. There's a message sent to him, breaking him and Zuccarello up. This, that, and the other thing. And I laughed because, you know what? There was no message sent. There was, I'm gonna put these guys together for a night. I'm gonna change things up. Coaches do it all the time, and and then lo and behold, Kaprizov has a really good game the next game, and people, see, the message was sent. You either start playing hard, or you're not gonna be up with player A, player B, or player C. I call complete BS on that. I made that known to a couple people who seem to think that, this coach is telling 97, you're not. This is a message. That's it. And I call total BS on that because listen, this guy's a superstar. And he knows better that, he knows he didn't have a good game. And you know what? If we don't allow a superstar to have a mediocre to not so good game, then shame on us.
Yeah. You know what the message was after that Tuesday game against San Jose, Pat? He came in on Thursday morning and they said, hey, you're going to be with these 2 guys tonight. Let's go get it. That was the message. Yeah. That's all it was. You're with these 2 guys tonight. And I don't understand the animosity. And the thing is too, I think it's funny to, I love Formula One racing. You're going to wonder where this tangent's going.
I'm a big Indy guy.
Yeah. I love Formula. I have a racing simulator here at home.
Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah. Easy. I'm a Verstappen guy, but it's all right, Alex. It's fine. Imagine that. We disagree. No, what is it? But the thing is, I love Formula One, but if Max Verstappen or Sir Lewis Hamilton walks up to me and tells me how something works after I make a comment about Formula One, I'm not going to look at them and say, well, you don't know anything. What makes
Right.
you so high and right? I have so many people, and I don't think any of us consider ourselves to be experts at the game by any means, but I know Pat and I, Pat had a way better career than I did, but, played the game, both of us, for decades, if you will. There's something to be said for knowing what it's like to be on the ice in a shift, knowing what it's like to be in a locker room, and understanding that, you can blow things out of proportion because you've never played the game or you've never seen that. And then when people like Pat Micheletti tell you, no, this is how it actually works in the locker room, people, you have these two things in the side of your head called ears. You can use them and recognize that we're not talking out of our butts for the sake of talking out of our butts. There's a message behind that. You want to talk about messages, it's just hockey. That's how the game works sometimes, and I find it humorous how people can go back and forth, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. And we're not saying that you're not. If you don't like Kaprizov, you don't like Kaprizov. That's fine. But you know what? We'll have an objective discussion with you and give our take on it. And, like Pat said, it's often a lot simpler in the locker room than people want to make it out to be a giant culture problem that they're going to send Kaprizov to CSKA Moscow for some conditioning or something like that. It really is, a lot simpler, so to speak. Before our final quick little thing about the Quebec Nordiques potentially returning to the National Hockey League, Pat, let's start with you. Who is one player, one line, one thing about the Minnesota Wild that has exceeded your expectations thus far? Is there anything that sticks out so far throughout heading into game 18 of the season, which hopefully Kalen Addison is able to make the flight, but we'll have to see.
Well, I think we've seen giant steps in Nico Sturm, but Nico Sturm is advancing where he should advance.
Yep.
I'll explain. Nico Sturm is not a number one center. He's not a number two center. He's potentially a number 3 or 4 center. And that's where he fits. That's where he excels. And a lot of people see Nico Sturm, make great, make great plays, right? But he's making them against the right guys. Okay. Mm-hmm. He's not, and that's no knock against him. It's that is where he excels. So, I try to explain to people, my philosophy on lines, and I've had this discussion with Dean Evison a couple different times, and it's not a matter about the individual as much as it is the partners that you're with, pairs, the combinations that you're with, the chemistry that you're with. And typically it's 2 guys on a line that really mesh together. You look at Zuccarello and Kaprizov, they just kind of know each other's games, right? And so you need that other guy, don't get me wrong. And they couldn't find that other guy. Last year, they found it with Victor Rask. Mm-hmm. Now, let's talk about Victor Rask a second. Hey, he's not a great skater. He does turn the puck over here and there. But I think a lot of people in their minds, have that Nino Niederreiter,
Charlie Coyle.
Yeah. That syndrome. Oh, we traded one of the nicest guys, and you're going to miss Nino and blah. And we get Victor Rask. And Victor Rask comes in with a bad ankle and was, right away and was hurt. Okay, we don't have to go back that far. But my point being is that Kaprizov had 27 goals last year, right? Mm-hmm. And who was the center? It was Victor Rask. Yeah. And who was he on the other side? Zuccarello. And my point is, they worked. All right. As an individual, you can say all you want about Victor Rask, and I would agree with you, would agree with that assessment. But if something works and there's chemistry there, I'm saying, and I'm not a defending of Victor Rask, but a lot of people just say, the first thing, 99% of the fans say, oh, geez, send Rask down, get rid of Rask, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? Dean Everson's a pretty smart guy. Bill Guerin's a pretty smart guy. Darby Hendrickson's a pretty smart guy. And the rest of the staff, they know what they have, and they make it work, and they make it fit, and they're winning games.
And I think we always talk about this in the show. If Victor Rask makes $1 million a year instead of $4 million a year, and you had him be a half a point a game per game player like he was with 3 points last season, are you complaining at all? I don't think anybody is. So I think that, again, imagine that. We all need to take a deep breath here. Speaking of taking a deep breath before we head on to Quebec, Alex, similar question. Has there anything that's been exceeding your expectations so far from this Minnesota Wild club?
Yeah, a guy like Brandon Duhaime, he's really taken advantage of his opportunity, and I always root for the college hockey guys. And so, going back to this past summer, when they would talk to Billy G, he would mention Duhaime's name, and along with the Rossies and the Boldies. And so that perked up my ears because, when you bring up a guy like that, and they really gave him an opportunity in training camp, and he ran with it. Same thing with Ryan Hartman. This guy can play on any line, and he doesn't care who he plays with. He's been productive on any line. And another guy that's really taken advantage. He took a team-friendly deal to come back to the Wild, and so he's exceeded my expectations. Another guy that still doesn't get talked about enough is Jonas Brodin. He's had an incredible start to the season. He's getting some power play time now too on the second unit, and so the guy never does anything wrong out there. It's incredible. You can put him in any type of situation. You put him out there late too to when the other team has an empty net, and he'll score you the empty net goal from way out from Tom Reed's the other night. So I mean. From a shot from way out against the Islanders. I love the depth on this team, like I mentioned earlier. And it's so fun to see a third and fourth line where you don't have to worry about putting them out there. And so it's rejuvenated a guy like Nick Bukestad too, playing with, guys like Sturm and Duhaime when they're paired together. And so, it's a fun team to watch, which, in past years, a lot of opposing fan bases, or even the Wild fan bases, call them the Minnesota Mild, but no longer. And I love what Billy G is doing with this team and the guys he's acquiring. And it's so much fun. It's such a fun team to watch for sure.
Yeah, I love that answer, Alex. And, my guy for me that I have pegged, I don't know that he's exceeding expectations, but I would say return to form for all the flack that he's gotten. I like Matt Dumba's game and the way that he's continued to progress in what he's done. You mentioned Nick Bukestad, though, former Golden Gopher, though. We've had a few of those on our show. You know anybody like that, Pat? Couple of guys. Be nice. So final question. My dad, like I said, went to the U in 81 and a huge Gophers fan. I grew up as a Gophers fan, and
very smart man.
Yeah. And he definitely enjoys every time you're on the show, and loves what you do, Pat, as do we. We're happy to have you here, as well as Alex. To kind of wrap up the show, as we had kind of mentioned, 18,259 seat arena that's sitting in Quebec City right now, as they're pushing to be the 33rd NHL team or the new Arizona Coyotes, whatever they're trying to do here. But like we mentioned in the weekly roundup, Gary Bettman meeting with the Premier of Quebec to talk a little bit about whether that's a possibility. You guys both familiar at least a little bit with some Quebec hockey back in the day. Pat, let's start with you. Does Quebec City have a home in the NHL? Does the NHL need Quebec City? Maybe is the better question. And does the timing make sense? Does the logistics make sense? Or do you think that it might be a meeting that might end the way that it is currently sitting right now in the NHL landscape?
Well, Alex knows this 100%. If he doesn't know it, I'll be really upset. My first NHL game that I played was against the Quebec Nordiques. And so listen, the city of Quebec deserves it. They're passionate about it. there's always a question of finance and the finances and the Canadian dollar, and that had a lot to do with it. I hope they do get a team, because the rivalry between Montreal and Quebec was it was unbelievable. And I hate to use this term, the hatred between the two cities. It was a passion between the two cities that they wanted to beat each other. And so I'd love to see them get back in. It's it's a hockey town. It's they deserve it. And I hope they're able to work something out.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see kind of how they fit in that piece here. Alex, if you tell me that the Whalers need to come back too, I have questions. But nonetheless, speaking of bringing potentially the 33rd NHL team, or if Arizona can't figure things out, adding them into the mix, if any way possible, where do you see the Quebec Nordiques fitting into the NHL landscape? Are they a new team? Are they a relocation team? Or do they get denied having a team once again that we've seen in years past?
Yeah, I would, if they do move the Coyotes to Quebec, I'm fine with it. It was, they've had a good run there. It's cool that they've grown the game of hockey. I mean, you look at Austin Matthews, one of the best players in the world is from that area. And so it's cool that, they've grown the game, but, I think it's time to get another Canadian market, involved, if they do relocate, it'd be really fun to see, that logo be back in the NHL in Quebec. And like I said, it's when you have a playoff series in Canada, those are the best ones. It's so much fun. The crowds get so into it. You see, especially like a team like Toronto, and you look at the square they have, and they put the games on a screen outside there, and every goal, it's like, it's heartbreak, or the fans are going bananas. It's it's so much fun. I think we need another Canadian team for sure.
I will add this. I don't think, unless it's a last ditch effort, I don't think, and herein lies the problem for Quebec. The league loves the expansion fee money. Okay. And that's where Quebec gets in trouble, because what did Seattle pay? Like $900 million.
Yeah, $900 million.
To come up with that type of money, you just don't pull it out of your pocket, right? And Gary Bettman, who a lot of people don't like, I think he's done a really good job in the league. Yeah, you don't handle everything properly or the correct way, but I think he's done a really good job in expanding to Florida, Arizona, even in California, and now Seattle. I don't think the league would like to see a team move. They want to keep it there wherever they are and make it work. And so that's what kind of really, really hinders Quebec, in my opinion, anyway, in getting in the league.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with that sentiment, Pat. And the timing for Quebec has always just been a shade off plumb, if you will, unfortunately, for their application process, or missing that one key piece that kind of pushes them over the link. But speaking of two key pieces, Pat Micheletti, Alex Micheletti, it was a joy to have you guys on. I got to ask before I let you go, Alex, you're going to be here next week with Caleb Peabody, some Thanksgiving special stuff. We'll have a little bit of fun with that episode. But Pat, before I let you go, you're letting Alex come over, whether or not he gets to eat today, we'll have to see.
No, it's not 100%. All right, he's got a lot of apologizing to do. There's a criteria. So, the jury's still out.
Yeah, definitely. Alex, I wish you the best of luck in your lineup card bid today. Pat, I got to ask, throughout the Thanksgiving week, though, you got any big plans for the week? And as a Huskies hockey fan, when will we be seeing you next on the big airwaves in terms of Huskies hockey?
it's nice, like the players and the coaches and everything. It's good to have a week off, and because it's been every weekend somewhere. So I'm going to enjoy this week, take it off, and then get ready for North Dakota and St. Cloud in 2 weeks, which I'm pumped for now. It's going to be a great series, so I'm really looking forward to that.
I am as well too. My birthday is actually December 3rd on that Friday. So what better birthday present could you ask than having two of the best teams in the NCHC going toe to toe? Alex, it's a pleasure to have you on the show as well too. I suppose I can ask real quickly, what are you up to for Thanksgiving? We'll get some more info on that as we go along.
What do you think he's up to for Thanksgiving?
Trying to get back in the lineup.
I mean, he's got to work hard to get invited over for dinner. How about that?
Alex, you think you're going to make the lineup here? What's the story?
Oh, I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's good. It's good to take some pressure, but I love Thanksgiving week, and it's so much fun to watch all the football too. That's one of the things I look forward to. Good food and good football.
Just remember, Alex. Yes, sir. No, sir. I'll take out the trash, sir. You're welcome.
Yep.
All right.
And you're the greatest dad in the world, right? Yeah. We'll take that too.
Yep.
Well, hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, Pat.
Thank you.
We'll see if Alex can get out of the doghouse. But speaking of the warming house and the warming house den, it was a pleasure to have Pat and Alex Micheletti, and we will see you soon for episode number 89.
One-timer, come in, they score! Ripped in! A bomb from Pervix!
So Dana Rasmussen fires and she scores! Dana Rasmussen for the Huskies alongside
Dwayne Kaprizov in for a chance to win it! He scores! Kirill the Thrill is for real! Welcome to the NHL!
Cathedral is now 42.6 seconds away from wrapping up the school's first ever title.